So with Matthew and Jules again, Fannys Bay, and now we're talking distillation, which I have photos and have heard the tales of Matthew designing and building his own still. So we'll have to hear about that. Those photos were in some of the decks that you sent me, so those will be used, that's for sure. But yeah, we've made our beer. We've mashed, fermented. We're right there after 14 days with what, our 7-8% alcohol by volume, fruity Fannys Bay beer. And now we're moving over to the pot still, the singular pot still. So do you want to tell me a little bit about how you designed it and what made you want to do that by yourself?
Well, my background is building things. So yes, that's what I do. To build a still, I decided to have a research of what whiskies I quite enjoyed and try and get the angles and etc. of those stills. And people ask me, well, what were the ones that you liked? And I haven't got the list anymore. But that's what I did. So I basically got the angle of the pot angle, and the different cone angles, and put them in CAD, and drew up a still that was going to be able to distill 300 litres at a time, which was what we wanted. So it's not big at all; it's quite small. And the line arm is quite long, because that has a big play in flavours. So I proceeded to build it, learned how to weld the copper myself. I hadn't welded copper before, and then acquired a hot water boiler. That boiler will heat my water up to 200 degrees under pressure. Not that we use 200. So the still is driven by a hot water boiler. What that does for me, it gives me an opportunity to be able to not just go and press a button and walk away. I actually drive the still. And when I say drive the still, what I'm doing is changing the velocity of boil. Mother Nature looks after what temperature is going to boil at, but I look after, is it going to be simmering or is it going to be boiling hard? And by doing that, I'm able to pull out flavours that could be left behind.
Now you don't have you can't see into your still though, right? I mean, are you?
Yes, yeah.
You can. Oh, you do have what is it? A sight glass into the.
Yes, I have a sight glass looking straight down, not
Okay.
up, not on the top cone, right down on the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would be important if you're trying to get some bubbling going and not have it come up and over and ruin that lovely beer that you just put in. So you're pumping the beer into this still, and then can you talk to me about roughly how long that first distillation will be before you collect it and go into second distillation?
Yeah, when the beer / wort's put into the still, that will take us around about 6 hours to extract all the alcohols from it. Once we have 300 litres of that, we then put it back in the still, and that's when we do the spirit run. So that's when we remove the acetones and the methanol. And that's done at such a speed that it generally takes me from 8 to 10 hours to do that. So it's quite slow.
Okay.
And that's
a lot of copper contact.
Yes. So the secret is not to be in a hurry. And by doing that, as I said, I can drive the still, so I can turn up that velocity of boil to flush out the line arm. And having a longer line arm is quite important for me, for what I'm making. Yes.
Okay. And I guess I have two questions. They're very different, so I'll wrap up the one half. The 300 liters for what you're collecting for the first run. How many wash distillation runs do you typically have to run to collect that?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the coastal air? Is that is it corroding your still? Are you going to have to make a new one? Is there any sort of influence for that that coastal air with the distillation, or?
No, not at that stage. No, it's not corroding the copper, but it's not shiny. It doesn't affect that. It does affect it does corrode the hot water boiler, so I have to have that serviced frequently. But no, and the trick to it is that it is operated by that hot water boiler, so it's you've got the opportunity to change the velocity of boil much easier than other ways.
I can imagine when you were learning how to weld, Jules was probably running in the other direction as you were dealing with all of the hot fire. I don't know. That's not something maybe I would dabble in, is melting of copper. I've seen YouTube videos, so might stay away from that. You're probably hoping to not have to build a second still anytime soon.
No.
And then for the spirits run, how are you actually taking your cuts? What's your thought process for your heart of the run?
That's all done with your taste and smell. So I'm consistently just dabbling and tasting. And I would say that I probably do cut quite a bit later out of them than a lot of other distilleries. And that's by choice. You don't have to. But I basically wait for the sweetness to go from the methanol and then the pungent smell and what have you till it gets to the flavour that I want. And then that's when we capture it. Yeah, so I do cut quite late.
Does that have anything to do with, I know we still have maturation to talk about, but anything with the mouth feel of your whiskeys, the weight that you get after maturing?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Yes. I got an A today, Jules. So I'm absolutely proud of me. I saw the smile on his face. He's like, oh, she remembers that from when I last taught her all of this.
Yeah, no, it has a big influence on the maturation of the whiskey in the barrel. If you cut earlier, it becomes higher in the palate, at the front of the palate. And I didn't want that. So cutting later lowers that down and lets the oils operate much better.
And if I remember correctly too, you're not redistilling the heads or the tails?
That's correct.
Okay.
Sometimes I will do the tails, but I'm not redistilling the heads, no.
Okay, so they're just
don't do that.
Pure wastage.
Well, basically, yes, but at this size, it's not like I'm having the heads of 20 litres of that.
Oh, no, it's probably just enough to clean the floors if you need to.
That's it.
Right? No, waste is just like small batch in American whiskey is a relative term. A small batch for Jack Daniels is very different than a small batch for a new distillery that just opened up. So waste is also, not used is a relative term as well for your size and capacity.
Yes, Craig said once they'd spill more than we made in a day.
Which is still sad to think about. And flavor profile of your new make spirit, is it still on point with your goal of that fruitiness of what you already tasted in the beer, and it's still on point? Yes,
it is. Yes. Yeah. And those flavors do vary with the type of grain you've been using, and also with the preparations to the barrel, which we'll go through later.
Right. Okay, great.